first of all, welcome everybody else that's in the room listening to this impromptu conversation and how it relates to the digital economy. And again, deep dives are all about small little gulps right now because everybody is trying to accelerate their own plans. And in that process, there are shortcuts that are taken. And those shortcuts end up compromising the long-term sustainability of projects. So this new economy is built on that. Really, it's about us and, people that are in a position to not only influence, but to develop breakthroughs, to be present in this evolution, because we know that it's not going to stop in its current state. It's going to continue to evolve and morph. And as creative as we have all become in this digital economy, it's the enterprises of the world right now that are trying to figure out what the vernacular is. What is this thing going on? And we all know that there's a new game in town. And that new game in town is driven by probably about 5,000 companies that are part of this economy, that are part of this landscape. What is amazing is that so many industries have been disrupted right now in this digital conversion that nothing is off limits, including Mars and other interstellar properties out there that eventually will be put on an NFT. I'll leave that and pass that on to the group to comment on.
Well, that's our introduction done. Here's my plan. I had written out an introduction for this lovely session about the new digital economy and all of our interconnectedness. But Brian just took it away, and he's great.
No, Lisa, why don't you go through that seriously? Because you did ask all of our thoughts, and you put something together.
Oh,
Since
stop!
Brian
No.
hijacked the calendar over here. It's okay. You still get your part.
My thing is, I know I agree with Brian, and I've basically said what he's saying in a different way and more formally. And I think that's what today, and that's what this is all about, is our interconnectedness, our ability to connect with each other no matter where we are. And it opens up this massive, unique opportunity to tap into the skills of various people from around the world. So I'm really happy to be here today and to be invited to be involved today. So for me, I'm specifically, my skill sets lie in brand strategy and marketing, growth marketing, and that's where I come from. And that's what I'm passionate about. But I feel with the interconnectedness of the new digital economy that I can apply that skill set to numerous different projects, be it blockchain, be it retail, be it, someone's a swimwear brand. You feel you can offer your services in numerous different ways, and it allows and forces people to think differently about their education. You should be striving for long form education now, long-term learning, learning about different ways of doing things. Anyway, for me, that's my little bit of background, and you don't need to know much about me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn afterwards. I'd like the speakers here, for everyone else that's joined us, maybe to do a little introduction about themselves, and we'll start with Aaron. If you want to say a few words.
Sure. My background's primarily in capital markets, entrepreneurship, and looking at money from the angle of digital since I started in 87 in Wall Street. And so I've kind of gone through the evolution of money and digital at the same time, from the outset. So my view is really more towards, that if we understand money and market structures, and as today we live in many different financial infrastructures that are coexisting, what is the role of people and humans in that as we think about substance and sustainability and work back from there and design the next generation business models that live off that digital infrastructure where natural resources meet people in intellectual capital, that meets digitization and a new set of optics where we're creating new words and definitions and standards and communities around, let's say, NFT as a Morpheus, nebulous concept, right? But, when I look at it through the optics of money, it's to me, it becomes a asset of some sort that can have some value in that exchange, which today is measured through money, through the lens of how money and currency and those things work. But then we have the advent of technologies that are very quickly dematerializing, disintermediating, or in some cases distinguishing businesses and creating new categories of businesses that naturally doesn't fall into anything that's comparable to the world that we leave behind or the world we live in today versus tomorrow. And in doing that, there's a new creation of categories of businesses that will start from, how liquidity pools and transactions and information come together with that intellectual capital. So, like in Anu, I just noticed Anu just joined us. Like in her world, she is, hell bent on enabling 2 billion people who are unbanked, right? It's a big statement. But today we can do that. And economically viable, it's regulatory, supported. It's, but the mind share and the willingness and the tenacity by which we do that, I think all the tools are here. So we really have an opportunity to rewrite, not just history, but rewrite the notion of how money will work going forward. And what is the utilization of that in real lives, starting with people. Then we can talk about what the meaning of property is and how then we can affect the planet. So that's the essential theme I'm coming from.
Great. Thanks a million, Aaron. And I think that means, like you're saying, think big with the right tools and it can be done. Basically.
Start with people.
Yeah. So that sounds great to me. Brian, do you want to jump in?
Yeah. So my name is Brian, and I'm a recovering entrepreneur. First of all, I'm really happy I was invited to this panel. Not only am I amongst friends and people that I respect, but we know that this content that we're discussing today is creating a path. Maybe a path for ourselves, maybe a path of people behind us. But this is all about network convergence. And when I kind of started my quest of figuring out how to survive autonomy, the world was at a crisis point. And this was the 2008 financial crisis. I had started a company in Israel on the rooftop of my friend's apartment. It wasn't a garage startup because he didn't have a garage, so we set it up on his roof. And we started to look at financial reporting very much from what is the problem here. You have these really very complex financial statements with no unification and the ability to really understand valuation, where transparency now became the solution, which led to the Jobs Act, which led to an implementation of Sarbanes-Oxley, XBRL, these predecessor technologies that brought us into the digital economy because it really had to do with tagging, tracking, and becoming available for everybody. Hence, the first blockchain transaction and our beloved Satoshi kind of came out of the ashes of complete chaos that we needed to think about how to create a new economy and a new financial accounting system. So with that being said, I position myself, always slightly ahead of current market realities and look towards innovation as a way to get involved and be relevant in understanding how the evolution of technologies has brought us to the point that we are today, where we take things for granted in the digital world, like, building a token. Well, we can do that in a couple minutes, right, today. But a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, nobody really knew what they were doing. They were, cutting their teeth at trying to figure out how to encapsulate a transaction. And now on scale, all we continue to do is produce data on a daily basis in extremely large amounts, where our mission now as a company and as a platform is to be able to demystify the complexity of the statistical information that's going on, to let artificial intelligence put your trust in AI, right? Because if you ask it for something and it doesn't know how to do it for you, you have an opportunity to be able to train it. And that's what we've done with our Plato platform, which we hope to have soon in the marketplace in the next couple of weeks. And looking forward to a lot of feedback from lots of users based on the success that we've had over the last year. So with that being said, I'm into innovation. I'm into capital markets. I'm a licensed investment banker, which allows me also to embrace compliance at every crossroad, no matter which jurisdiction or which geographic is there. We have a responsibility to enable that very much on a local level. Tokenized companies should get in the habit of reporting, right? They're not. We're reporting on them statistically, price gyrations, action, all that other stuff. But the companies themselves and the foundations behind that should create an initiative to be able to enable their own financial reporting to those token holders that can access that by owning a token.
Yeah, Brian, that makes a lot of sense and makes me excited about the future, to be honest. So yeah, you're embracing innovation and you're putting your trust in AI, and we're demystifying data. I really like that term, demystifying data. I think
you can use that, by the way.
Yeah, that's a marketable term right there. Jill will agree. So Anu, can you introduce yourself to the panel?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm Anu Bardwaj. I'm the founder of Sheconomy and the platform that created Amplifying Her Voice, the State of Women Institute, which is a US 501c3. I've been working with Brian and Aaron for the past 9 months. Jillian and I just got connected about a month ago. My background is I have been in a couple different iterations. I used to raise capital for US private equity and venture funds from the Nordics and the Middle East. And I had about $175 billion worth of assets under management that we were raising capital for in partnership with the State Department and the Commerce Department. And this was back in 2010 to 2014. And from the work that I did there, I started a platform called Women Investing and Women Digital. Goal was to get more women investing, get more women entrepreneurs banked. Aaron and I met earlier when in the initial stages of women investing, women stayed in touch, and we had summits all over the world. Last one we did was at NASDAQ, Nordic Stock Exchange, with 1,400 women talking about investing in 2015. And at that time, we decided to take our platform digital, created a podcast series of radio shows called Women Investing and Women and Girls with Voice America Kids. And it was, the very small production. My daughter was my co-host. My babysitter was 14 at the time. She was another co-host. And we had our nanny as the producer. And we interviewed all kinds of initiatives like UN Women, UNICEF, former Deputy Prime Minister of Sweden, Princess Rima. And we had this radio show. It did really well. Our audience started to grow organically to the point where we now have 970,000 followers on Facebook. And pre-COVID, we decided to expand this little, show to a podcast network. The State of Women Podcast Network have now created Sheconomy, which is a multi-platform podcast app. So we're on Android, iOS, and a new operating system called KaiOS, which works on $20 mobile phones, where women from the bottom billion can now listen, learn, and earn tokens. So the new digital economy for us is all about inclusion. It's about thinking of those people that may not have access to technologies that we all do. And going forward, we need to see how we can become more inclusive. Not say, look, maybe this will work for them, but why don't we just design systems for them to start with that we can also use? And so this is what I've been working on in COVID time, and Amplifying Her Voice was a way to connect all of these stakeholders from Women Investing, Women Digital's community back to where we are now, and just really gear up to what's about to happen in the fall, which is let's talk about adoption, let's talk about inclusion, and let's talk about like real diversity, including people that may not have had access to all these other technologies that we've had.
That's amazing. I feel completely in awe. That's the only word. Congratulations. And, being a woman and you're just a professional juggler and you don't even realize it. You're just a professional juggler from the start. Yeah. I think you're great. And doing multiple things as well, which I love, because I have, multiple projects that I'm happily invested in and, happily passionate about and willing to give time, equal time to a lot of them. So yeah, congratulations. And Jill?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, actually. Great panel here today, and thank you, Lisa. You're doing a wonderful job managing us all, herding cats. But Anu, what I really like, what you were just saying there, you went from a business where you were managing billions under AM, what's it called? What's it called? AU, whatever.
AUM.
Thank you. And then looking at trying to deliver something to women on a $20 phone. I think that's what's called vision. So my background is I'm a journalist, broadcaster, and author. And disruption is what the new digital economy means to me. Disruption, because I know that in 2008, we had the financial crash and the world was disrupted. My own little personal world was disrupted. And sometimes you need to get a jolt before you see stuff. Sometimes if you're going along happy people rarely make, inventions or discover great things. They're happy. It's nice to be happy. And then but if you are jolted out of your existence, then you can look around and you go, ooh. And so I saw disruption in the banking world, in the way that people looked at finance, disruption in how people now, obviously with COVID, we have disruption in how we work, the gig economy. And ironically, you would think that COVID would help women in some ways because the gig economy sort of taken off, we all have access remotely. But in actual fact, women are dropping out of work more than ever during COVID because they've got to mind kids, look after parents, that there's extra pressures on them that weren't there before. So, and even like female founders, I think there was like 2.9% of all money went to female founders in 2019 before COVID, and it's down to 2.3 or something. So it's actually, COVID's not helping women, sadly. But also there's disruption in tech as well. And I love, Brian, when you say, trust in AI. We were at a conference earlier and they were going, don't trust in AI. It was quite the opposite. So anyway, but it is disruption is brilliant because it shakes up the normal life that we have, and we're all very happy going along the place. We don't think about stuff. And then disruption comes and you go, oh, what could I do better? What could be done better? Why is it this way? Why is it always this way? So for me, disruption is the big thing, the big interesting thing about this space.
Okay, Brian, you're on mute. Just realize you're on mute. Brian,
I found something off Jillian and what she said there, right? Okay. To amplify kind of the comment on. I had the pleasure yesterday of sitting on another one of Anu's panels about empathy and artificial intelligence. That us as designers and developers and visionaries and whatever role we are in trying to carve out this, this integration across this digital economy. We have to think about that on the design level and what the purpose of what we're doing, who does it really serve at the end of the day, and what is its purpose? And that has to be ingrained into the DNA of the product. Once you can crack that, well, now you can connect universally with everybody. And that is what's happening here, right? We are part of something that is quite sacred in history, I think, right? This was we were here when this all started, right? In 100 years from now, I don't think you're going to recognize the digital economies of the world. Not that we're moving to a one coin new world order. This is not about conspiracy theories here. This is about us controlling our own destiny.
Yeah, I think, let me add to that, Brian. I think, when you look at cyclicalities in at least the 30 years that, I spent on Wall Street in Silicon Valley, there's many different forces. I think the force here that we have to now move into action is not admire the problems, assume problems hit this, endpoint, okay? However we envision problems to be, okay? Accept whatever, is going around to be true. Because otherwise, it's very easy now after the pandemic to get caught into so many different rabbits and rabbit holes. And there's just too much, too many places coming at us, many different forms to even decipher who's who in the zoo and what the original or what the real intent of individuals are. So while we're trying to build trust, there's this trust already decaying underneath us, right? And that's the reality. So I don't want to sound like we're doing all these great things and great things are going to happen. The challenges ahead of us are enormous, much more than has been getting to this point today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Okay, so I
would
think that's where I like to shift most of my discussions these days around just three questions. What are you doing to address the problem? How are you doing it? And who else is helping you? Okay. And if somebody says they're doing it on their own, they're full of shit. Okay. Because otherwise they're attacking the problem that's limited to themselves. Or, we just haven't spent enough time to socialize, how we can really participate together. And I think that's the social DNA and chemistry that Brian's talking about. It's very important, because I was on that panel as well. And I've grown up with the AI, the community. And I said, look, at the end of the day, if the topic is empathy, we have to kind of think about the human beings who are actually designing these systems and codifying this. It's not about coding the heuristics and putting on a system, because it only do what you expect that person who coded it, or the data that's collected, the data set that drives the decisions. I think this is really a dynamic ontology, and the substrate underneath it is going to be how these people get integrated in the social norms, the economic realities, the health and wellness and prosperity issues, or as simple as what we're doing with Bangladesh or about to do, just identify and recognize and acknowledge the refugee problem and deliver some basic services. That puts a big dent in the problem, right? As a solution, right? So I think those are the things that this is the year where we not only talk about it, we do those things, because it's the maturation is here at this point. At least for us as human beings, I think there's clusters of people who are now coming together as we are, this different tribe with a common goal.
Yeah, I just have to jump in on that, because we're after steering away, but I'm very interested in it. Have you heard of the blue zones? Blue zones, the places where people live the longest in the world. So like Sicily there's one in Sicily, a place in Sicily. There's a place in the States. There's a few places in Europe, but there's 5 of them for the whole world, blue zones. And a big part, one of the big reasons why they've studied them for decades, for 20 years, and why they live longer is that they have that sense of community, that sense of involvement. And the new digital economy can offer that. We can involve people in different projects. I feel blockchain is very much involvement. From Gillian brought me in only 3 months ago to blockchain.
Wow.
I'm involved in about 7 projects. I'm involved in a lot of projects. Just talking, giving feedback, not too much work. We all have to pay the bills. But stuff that I enjoy, projects that I like, you feel you can get involved in, or that you can support, especially when it comes to that's what I was interested in what you had to say, Aaron, because I'm very interested in climate change and stuff like that. So how you can bring communities across the world together to solve big problems, and then they feel a part of something. You're part of the mission and the bigger vision. So I feel, for me, the big thing about the new digital economy is that we can build online communities like the 5 of us here today, and everyone on the panel, and everyone here watching. You're a part of a community of people interested in amplifying women's voices. It's a no-brainer.
Well, either you fall into the headwind of pressure and strain and blockers, or you stay true north with other people who have the same leap of faith and belief that they can get there, right? I mean, I think it's more psychological at that point. But there's 2 things that happen in my experience. Either you get a false confidence about yourself, and you miss the realities of why. So the purpose-driven versus profit-driven comes into that mix as an entrepreneur. And 2, right now, when you look at the data sets and expansion of data and information and knowledge, and yesterday, I think, Brian, I think it was you who shared with me that there was over 9 billion connections on the internet yesterday. If I go back just when we were doing 1996, okay, when we were starting the first internet registry called Network Solutions, the number of people we had with domain names, and people were saying, I still remember talking to saying, look, every UPS truck or DHL truck will have a www, a www on it, okay? And people just looked at me like, it was strange, right? Now think about all the businesses that got valued on, annuity streams and lists and subscribers, and it created a new business model, right? That didn't exist before, right? And maybe it existed in how we got a title for our house or registered our car, but that's a registry, right? but in a new world, it had a different level of value and engagement, connectivity. Well, I'm saying in the money world also, we don't have an equivalent for that right now. And we are not waiting for what's the technology of the day, whether it's wallets or whether it's crypto or, it's not enough time for the innovation cycle to enable and put things in the hands and ears and eyes of people who need it today. So that's where I defer to Anu. She's leading the way on that. It also takes advantage of two major forces around the world from business point of view. We have this climate pressure on one side where all the assets seem to be moving there. And then we have this ESG pressure on this side, which, putting a lot of compression and pressure around how money is being formulated to support innovation and entrepreneurship. Not everybody can afford to write checks like some of us all the time. At some point, it becomes a real risk in a business to grow and scale and pace, right? So it's how do you sequence and orchestrate the market is an alchemy by itself. And I think that's where, a little bit of old world thinking and knowledge with new world ambition and inspiration is required right now.
Yeah, really well said. Really well said. Brian, do you want to come in on that? Maybe using the data to support projects, maybe?
Well, look, we've been in an extremely interesting vantage point on this evolution for the last 5 years. We started to sectorize this industry in early part of 2015. And as we saw the different sectors that were being affected by this disruption, we knew we were onto something. The question is what was going to happen and whether or not it was going to cannibalize itself, like other predecessor technologies that promised a lot. Anybody out there that's familiar with XBRL, you may know what I'm talking about. But, the SEC spent tons of money, 10 years of bureaucracy that just ended up becoming a compliance tax on public filers, right? And as you start to unify, I would say, asset value across a digital ecosystem, liquidity becomes the factor on why you're on that technology. So as we work on better ways of creating transference of assets, no matter where they are, it's driving an economy that's not being, it's not being captured in the GDP numbers of government balance sheets, which in turn are creating a global mess of the sovereign debt structure again, aka thanks to a lot of countries that are not paying attention to new economies and how to be able to build better environmental systems. That becomes the new economy and is really about kind of what Aaron and Ambika is all about, right? And being able to kind of create this new economy. Frankly, why would you put your money in a bank? Because you trust it. If you have trust in the system that holds your assets, it becomes a seamless experience for people. We're just not there. The vulnerabilities in this environment has a lot to do with, I would say unscrupulous people that are always trying to catch people off guard. Okay? That when things are moving up, everything's moving up. Everybody's having a good time and is jubilant. But as we saw in the last week or two, right, enthusiasm in any marketplace creates an accelerated bubble. And that bubble then has to prick somewhere. And usually it's the barbers of the world that are losing their money because they heard a tip to buy something when it was at an exorbitant 11. Why is Doge the way that it is? Okay, now that it's there, and in a way, it's kind of too big to fail, right? It's in a too big to fail mentality. Is what can we do with that ecosystem right now? I know Elon has some interesting ideas about, selling land plots on the dark side of the moon. But, in all reality, what is that blockchain there for? It's there to be able to facilitate security, right? So it's up to developers to be able to build applications to fill the capacity that's created.
Mind you, you don't have to wait for Elon Musk to sell you plots on the dark side of the moon. You can go to Decentraland or Uplift World or Uplands. There's a whole bunch of them that are selling stuff. Although, mind you, mentioning the moon, when my goddaughter, who is now 24, when she was born, it's 24 years ago, I got her a present. And I thought, what'll I get her? This child, her parents were very successful. I bought her some jewelry or whatever. And I bought her off the internet, 10 acres on the moon. So I got a scroll. I paid, it cost me 20 euros or whatever, 20 pounds, punts. And I got it in the book. And I thought I was so, ahead of my time. But now, I mean, people are buying land in Decentraland, and they're buying in all the different metaverse.
Guess what? There's no land titling agency for the moon yet. So we see an opportunity to take your distress.
Hey, listen, I bought 10 acres 24 years ago. Where are my deeds that I want to know?
But here's the other funny thing, right? You can go anywhere in the world, and that's still in contention.
Yes.
And rights of land, right? So that's why I say people, property, and planet, right? If we can get the people liberated from ownership of the land that they live in or responsible to harvest for survival, okay? Well, that should be a first order problem. Because once you get that property, then we could digitize or create enormous economies around those two assets by itself. And if there's, 3-4 billion people out there, even if they're taking a fraction of a billionth of share of consumption, okay? If you just do the math, just in Anu's world with 2 billion people, the way she's going after that, it wouldn't surprise me if she can, get a very good solution and coverage within 9 months to a year to 1 billion plus at the rate she's going right now, with kind of momentum and the gravitas by which we collectively are helping her get there, right? So I see these as moments in time, or momentary lapse of reasoning, if I wanted to use, Dark Side of the Moon or anything like that as an example. But, I think, that puts texture and color and reality into topics today that we as thought leaders, practitioners, inventors, entrepreneurs, loosely shovel around like crap, okay? Because, there's 50 million ways to describe NFT, right? But, am I waiting for the right one so I can judge it? No, because I don't have time right now, because we're optimized on fundamentals, right? Because Anu will tell us very happily, one of the biggest problems in the women's society globally is just basic hygiene right now. Well, why can't we provide that, right? Because a lot of the supply chain is torqued and moved towards making masks and other things, right? So it's taking away from fundamentals of, people's right to live, right? So I'm not talking about charity. These are all commercial enterprises that we can enable to give people what they really need, the freedom to do and run their own businesses without having to deal with the people that stand in the way to prevent them from doing that and make profit out of that, which is the world we live in right now, and it's not going to get any better. Right? So I'm not saying let's create a secondary world, but I'm saying transitionally, we felt the same way around liquidity in the crypto world. So we created something that fit in the middle to create a way to take the movements of assets from one exchange to the other, the real capital markets to the DeFi marketplace, and allow people to use their assets and their properties to start to harvest and farm the transactions and take away gas. So that disrupts an economic model today. While everybody's going through the ums and ums of the crypto world right now, guess what? You're not buying my coin to make money on my coin. You're buying my coin to get yield off my coin while everybody's going ooh and right? So we've demonstrated a recession-free or a market dynamic-free, no pump and dump, and all those other things that we complained about. Now we want to do that to the people side, because we can create and leverage and also create currency through things like that of the movements. And that has no gold tied to it and this and that. That was 3 years ago when we created a stable currency for Africa for that. So I think if we're going to be in the frontier, this is the year we got to put, proof points in place and start doing and showing the impact and measure it and show it's a better world. My hypothesis is that we're going to have a very streamlined and realistic version of metrics that supersedes ESG and other things people talk about that get in the way and create that inertia for the time being. So that's the mode we need to get on. So anyhow, I'll get off my soapbox. I just get excited meeting you guys like this.
We're just putting down the foundations this year. That's what we're putting down. We're putting down the foundations of what's to come, the exciting things that are to come. But from the NFT side and from supporting women's side, you'll know a bit about this, Anu, and Gillian as well. I find that a lot of the new digital economy, for me, because money is taken away, right? So if money no longer matters because you have your tokens and you're making some bits here, there, and everywhere, then something else needs to matter. to you, right? So art matters, NFTs matter then, poetry matters, music matters. And what you do then is you start to associate yourself with tokens that are associated with your entertainment. So what entertains you? So if the environment entertains you and gives you, you know, that oomph in life, then you're going to want to invest in tokens associated with the environment. If art entertains you, you're going to want to invest in Decentraland and Rarible and these type of things, you know. So it becomes less about the money. Now, this is just me talking as a woman that has a few tokens here, there, and everywhere in things. But I only chose the stuff that I was passionate about a few years ago. You know, like when Rarible started, I was like, this is genius. Let's get a few tokens in Rarible. So I find
what you're doing though is absolutely spot on, because what if money, the exchange of value, things we do, what if that was based on our passion? So even though we kind of slagged like Dogecoin earlier, they had a community. They wanted to tip people. They sent the boys off to the Winter Olympics.
It proved that the ledger could reset itself when it was necessary. And then again,
but it was more even. I'm talking more. And I'll let you. Sorry, you talk about the ledger, about the passion. So the same way that if you have a passion for, maybe you're interested in saving the planet, whatever, you will invest and buy or devote your attention and you get a return. Now that doesn't normally happen. Normally if you've got a passion for something, you often don't get the financial return, which could sustain you or sustain another artist or sustain a farmer or something like that. So yeah. I think Lisa's got the nail on the head there. Money is passion. And when I say money, I mean the ability to feed and clothe yourself.
Let me take it one step further and I'll let Anu pipe in on that, because she lives this every single day, right, in her audience. And she hears it from many different aspects of the world, how passion manifests itself into reality, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to always bring it back to reality, what we know today, right? Mm-hmm. It may change tomorrow, but today's reality is that, look, you know, at the end of the day, we have to be very careful when we talk about value exchange and currency or monetary systems, because mm-hmm. I can make the assertion, and I'm actually doubling down on this, to say even gold is a perception and money is a perception. Mm-hmm. And if we want to connect to two perceptions, passion, love, joy, feelings, okay, mm-hmm. then let's not talk about the future of money and digital economy, but let's talk about it holistically beyond money, right? But at some point in today's world, and for a while in the future, we're going to have to translate those passionate tokens into something that we can buy: water, food, clothing, mm-hmm. medicine, maybe even exchange that for knowledge and so forth. So let that be a segue to Anu. And I think it'll kind of level set how it connects together and why it's so important we engage in this dialogue and try to put our best foot forward every second of the way moving forward. Anu, all yours.
Oh, great. So I think when we're looking at this, Lisa, when we're talking about future of money and we're talking about NFTs, and you mentioned now it's moving in the direction of art and poetry and so forth. The way that I have viewed what we're doing is defined by people are looking for impact. Number one, mm-hmm. You're looking from a commodity perspective. And that's fine. And this, you know, before gold had value and NFTs have value and so on and so forth. But how would it be? What kind of world would we have if you yourself had value? And I think this is something that, you know, Brian is working really hard for as well, which is, you know, you've got this identity piece, you've got your own data piece, and we're placing value on the human itself as opposed to that money, right? And this is that mind shift that's happening, because even this call today, people are investing their time. Your time is your currency. And we have now developed a whole new website where when you watch, when you listen, you earn tokens. Like, I'm taking money away from you, your children, you should be compensated. Like, how amazing would that be if all these Zoom calls that you've been on all year long, if you were actually making money off of that? Can you imagine? So this is the thing, like, we actually give away our data again and again and again. And so we said, we're not just going to make these apps. We're going to take it to the next level and say, everything you're doing here today, that's going to help another woman. That's going to help you. That's going to help Brian because he contributed. That's going to help Aaron because he's contributed. We don't see that now. So it's a way more abundant system. It's a way more generous system. No one's owning this. We're all collectively participating in this. And that's what makes she economy beautiful, because in the old economy, it was the he economy and it was all mine, 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 mine. And now in the she economy, it's ours, 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 ours. And this is what makes it beautiful, because it's powered by the voices of women and those who support the voices of women. That's what this is about. And so ultimately, it's not that NFT out there. This is about you, your point of view, what you have to say, why it matters, and how we're going to change the world together because of it.
Well said. Well said.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, no, it sounds amazing. I like ours, ours, ours. Or like you throw tokens at me and just say yours, yours, yours all the time. I don't mind. Just do that. Just do that.
But before you keep it all to yourself, just recognize, okay?
Lisa, I'd like to challenge
men in the mix.
I'd like to challenge the group a little bit. I want to challenge our quality audience that is here listening to us today, which again, some questions have come in from there, some discussions have come in from there. We have to force ourselves right now to look 10 years in the future. We have to think about how this digital economy is not only going to evolve, but is going to spawn a completely new economic reality that is going to make this last generation of wealth, right, that was created across this thing, be dwarfed. And that is when the traditional economies of the world now start to move on a sovereign level, where there's a lot of headwinds, especially some of the announcements out of China this week, which created a tremendous amount of downward pressure on adoption concerns. Now, we unleashed a monster, okay? And it's like a hydra, right? It's got multiple heads. It eats, we just want to make sure that we don't eat ourselves in the process.
This is the danger.
It's not about self-actualization, but this is about responsibility that we have as individuals to act responsibly and act on a very, very local level. When we can touch one person with the technology, we save the world, okay? And this is how the nodal system of the blockchain is there. The advantages, I think, are apparent to a lot of people, but this velocity of being able to spawn innovation right now in an afternoon, as opposed to a 6-month design cycle, is incredible. We have lost the physical business environment. We live in a completely distributed world. The economy is that way. I would love to see what the trading floor looks like in Goldman Sachs today, right?
Empty.
Right? So,
empty.
There's a push now to make sure that people come back to work, to restore the culture there. But that culture is forever now, has been changed, right? And there's a transfer of wealth that is about to take place that is environmental in nature, that is about recycling things to create energy and establish resources. That's 10 years to me. That digital economy right now is every node that's on a system now is communicating with each other. That's what we're doing on the W3 side of the world, is to try to be able to enable this neural network of AI managed energy, right? And where we can route that into resources that are going to help the economy, that frankly is going to be the next, if it's going to be the next big thing, the masters of the universe have already written out that playbook, right? And that's where the institutional money is going to be going in the next 5 to 10 years. And we have a responsibility to, be part of that and be part of it responsibly. So go buy crypto. No, I'm just kidding. Go buy any crypto.
Why 10 years?
This is not an offering to sell securities.
No, Brian is.
I want to give you crypto. I want you to earn your crypto. I don't want you to go buy crypto.
I want to donate my crypto. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. So put whatever you want to give me, just put it into an open hat. Let people take as much as they want or leave as much as they want.
Correct.
So let me just answer your question, Jillian. Brian is way too conservative. When I say high speed, low drag, no minutia, okay, Brian is the the other side of the brain that keeps us honest, right? But I think the reality is it's someplace between, 9 months from now, okay? And realistically, I think it's going to happen much faster. I think the readiness and the barriers to entry usually tended to be capital, okay, and regulation, especially cross-border. Then we talk about culture and integration and those kind of localization issues. But I think all of those things now, given the last couple of years and especially post-pandemic, we're much more connected than we had expected to be when we were looking at the divide and the digital divide years ago. Okay. We also, the comment about one of the banks this morning that Brian just made, how many traders are there? Well, we know for a fact they're my bankers, right? We know they're all working from home. They've been in Hamptons all this time. Nobody's downtown. But on the converse of that, when you look at another major bank on Wall Street, and I won't mention the name, who came out yesterday and said they will not allow any of their employees in unless they can prove vaccination. Now think about the choices for an industry that people have to make in banking, right? Mm-hmm. And these are not choices that are traditional business choices. Mm-hmm. Choices that people are going to make on their values, right? And that will be, another, last straw, another camel's back to say, not the institution, right? So I think we're seeing a lot of these things happen underneath us. So we shouldn't lose sight of, where the real action is. It's on the ground. Okay? And the part that I think we will miss being in the digital world on Zoom calls all day long. I mean, Anu and I just finished I was in Europe, for like almost a month, and I came down to New York, spend a week with Anu in Florida, with getting on the ground in Bermuda. Left Anu in Bermuda actually, but she seems to be doing well. Place where we've been for 3 years, so we know we can. So when you're on the ground, the dynamics change quite a bit, right? And when you're executing and you see the results of that iterative process, it's like do, sense, learn, right? It's not like let's bake the thoughts, have a great thought in the shower, go peddle some money, put some stuff together, see if it works, and then iterate from that. Those days are over. So there's a degree of risk that one must take. And, it's not capital risk anymore. It's a personal risk in this world. Let's start there. Then we'll figure out the capital issues. There's way too much money out there. It's just silly money chasing silly inventions. But no one's putting into context that we can actually say it made something better. And, if we have something to talk about that as an archetype on this call, I would love to. Because you know what? We're in search of what's better. And we're going to live in that question for a while. But I do believe it's going to be sooner than 10 years.
Me too.
Can I come in there? I think because we only have 15 minutes left, I think we'll do a round table of 2 things that the viewers and that we should take away from each other that you believe the new digital economy will offer to people. That can be gender, that can be gender related, it can be innovations, it can be entrepreneurship. But what should we look out for in the next 2 to 3 years and and read about and talk about?
I'll jump in. So first and foremost, I think the fact that we're going digital, it's a strong sign that we have choice. It's a choice that our children have right now. We now are not looking at just fiat anymore. There's fiat and there's digital. So first and foremost, you've got these kids playing Roblox. They're asking their parents for cash to turn it into digital currency, whatever they're using, gaming, right? So now they're trading. They're learning how to become traders. They're using digital assets. And it's only going to take a matter of minutes before that turns into a crypto. And then you'll have to reckon with it and say, what is a Robux or what is a Roblox or whatever. And these kids are being conditioned, all these Zoom kids and these Google Classroom kids, that's what they're doing sitting at home. They're learning about digital assets. The parents are like, I don't care. I've got work to do. You guys go and I'll give you some money. How many 10-year-olds are out there already on the new digital economy? So think about that. Secondly, this is about inclusion. This is about inclusion in a way, financial inclusion at an unprecedented level, where these people, I should say, who don't even have identity now, are going to be flipping the whole global digital economy. This is a new global digital GDP that Aaron and I have been discussing for a while. Why? Because they matter now. All of a sudden, once we put crypto in their hands, they have economic power that hasn't been there before. And we know what they want to say because now we're enabling them with voice on top of that. And guess what? It's happening in parts of the world that you would never have expected it to start from. So if you haven't figured it out yet, big change is coming. It's not going to take 10 years. It's happening. It's right underneath you in your child's bedroom. It's happening already.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. And I love the idea of inclusion. I just love it. Like recently, like I'm on that. The minute we get off this call, I am all on that. Starting with the children, because absolutely.
They know how to share. And what adults have not done, these kids are going to be doing and helping other women and girls. This whole platform that's being built right now, Sheconomy, Amplifying Her Voice. My daughter's college trust fund, I said to Arya, this money can put you through college, or I can help send 900 million girls to school. What should I do? Take the money, mama. Give it to them. They need it. So that's child saying, this is how we should spend our money. And other children are saying the same thing. We can share, it's beautiful.
I had a very similar experience with my children. I went through, I said at the start, the world's financial crash. I had my own personal crash, and we were very, 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 very broke. And I can remember I got a check in, as this is a long time ago, obviously, a check for a piece of writing I didn't expect. It wasn't very much, maybe it was about €200, and I wasn't expecting it. I remember saying to the kids, okay, do I put this into, I don't know, fuel or food, whatever, or I also was sponsoring a Russian orphan over in Russia, and so far it had taken, I think, about €250 a year to pay for this child, just to pay for her basics, whatever. And I said to my children, what will I do? Will I put it into the fuel to heat the house, or will I pay for the child? And both kids went, we can wear jumpers, Mum. So you're absolutely 100% right. Kids are not, they were maybe about 14, 16. So, but kids are amazing. Kids, especially if you let them be who they want to be, they can be so much better than we have been, perhaps. Our generation, all that learned stuff that like me, as opposed to, yeah, I can share. They didn't even know this child. I mean, this child was an unknown to them. They said, oh no, Yulia needs the money. So I think you're right. Kids are amazing. Jill, before us grown-ups brainwash them the wrong way.
Jill, from a media expert point of view, PR point of view, I have my own things to say about blockchain and branding. But I do think that, Jill, you'd have some inputs and insights in advice or something the people are listening to us now. For new digital media, is there any advice or approach that you would take, or just one thing to give people a takeaway?
Yeah. Well, a couple. Okay. Well, one thing. If, for example, someone listening to this is, I'm a journalist, right? They want to be a journalist. Back in the day, it was very hard to become a journalist because you needed to get into your local paper. You needed to become an intern. You had to, because it was all print, and it was so difficult. Nowadays, you can be your own journalist, good, bad, or indifferent, and you can put up your blogs, and it costs no money, and it's incredibly accessible. So, as a journalist, I'm saying get in there and get out there and just do it. Stop procrastinating, because you don't need anyone's permission anymore. You can just write what you want, and that's kind of cool. Now, obviously, you want to write for bigger things or create things. And like I knew you were saying that your radio show has blossomed in numbers. That's fantastic. But you created that. You didn't go to the BBC. You didn't go to the local station. You actually did that. So I think that's, just an answer to your question, as you said about media and the digital economy. We can make things now. It was hard, much harder before. And don't be wrong, I'm not saying that you didn't put a lot of hard work into creating, because I know trying to create following is very difficult. So there's a lot of hard work that you did. But you can do it. You didn't need the BBC. You didn't need NPR. You didn't need RT. You did it yourself. So, just do it, I think.
Just do it. I like that one. We got that one from someone else. Nike.
I cheated. Jill says do it. Oh, that's
Jill says do it. Jill says do it. I like it. So, Aaron, do you have a takeaway for our audience and from me?
No, I think part of the challenge that we face is when you say just do it. What's lacking, in my view, is the execution side of it. There's a lot of people running about in conferences and webinars and discussions and topics, which is playing buzzword bingo, right? IoT, UFO, EIEIO. as I said.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very deep in technologies, and I built my career around that. And I've learned a long time ago not to use acronyms and get back to the fundamentals. So I think, like I said before, this is a year of execution, year of great proof points, and in the just do it spirit, find people to do it with and along. It's much more enjoyable that way. You know, I think to Brian's point, this is a year of unification at multiple layers of the problem. We're only talking about the digital layer here today and the layer of finance and emotions and perceptions, but the physical layer, don't lose sight of the noise on the ground. That's what Anu keeps along with others on the ground. Those are the real signals. So let's try to see how we can incorporate that form our strategies for execution.
I love that. So focus on execution and just do it, but do it with other people.
Do it with friends.
Do it with friends and do it with people that are passionate about what you're passionate about.
Then you can scale that way too, the spirit by which, you know, because a lot of this is the human factors element at this point. Because the technology is pretty much commoditized at this stage to really do something big with it.
Yeah. I think that Brian, you'll have some good advice for us here as well in terms of a takeaway and is data going to come into it, hopefully?
Well, you know, we have this incredible thing in front of us right now. It's a question of which lens you're looking at it, you know, and how do you want to be able to apply it. We've created a new economy here. So I think if there's anything that we need to be on the lookout for is eliminating any kind of friction between the blockchains. The unification there and communication is a very, very tough challenge that is being addressed. And in a way, Ethereum is not the only game in town, right? And you will start to see a normalcy there, I believe, in transaction costs and transaction times across large marketplace environments. And I don't know if Ethereum 2.0 is the answer either, right? We have still yet to see, but it's wonderful to be here watching this stuff as it comes out and, you know, watching some of the predictions that were made 2 years ago regarding where we are right now, and that convergence of commercial adoption is right now. We're right in the bullseye right now. A lot of the technology, unfortunately, is being commoditized, but that means that there's enterprise demand for kind of what those services and solutions bring. So we should look a little bit farther down the road here if we want to get in front of things, right? How does the seamlessness of us to connect our devices across networks to make our lives have more value, I think is the next thing. IoT now is, you know, maybe it's the buzzword, I don't know again, but it's been around for a while, but now we're actually seeing it. And we're seeing it across really great use cases like solar distribution, you know, that has an output effect. So, you know, just having another blockchain or building another technology, it's very hard to build the killer app, okay? Whatever it's going to be. If you're one of those lucky guys that come up with the next Twitter, you know, you deserve to be in the position that you're in, right? But you have a responsibility to. You have to continuously think about the elasticity of your application and the flexibility of that marketplace to absorb it. We're just, you know, burning time right now. The capacity now is being created for the next run up, which is going to generate and spawn another 1,000 Einsteins. Okay, they're coming, right? We don't know who they are yet because they're still in elementary school. But growing up across this environment right now, it's going to be so inspiring to see, you know, people that are coming out that are doing things for the right reason.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that it is inspiring at the moment. I suppose my one takeaway as a brand marketing person, and I'm a bit touchy-feely. So a lot of what I do is touchy-feely. And I play on the emotive side of my brain more. I work to the emotive side of my brain. So I will say, if there's anyone listening and they're interested in cryptos, I've invested in a few tokens, a few cryptos. And they have been my passions. They've been related to stuff that I'm interested in. And they've all paid off. So don't worry if you're just starting to dabble and you just opened a meta search account and you're starting to think about cryptos. I wouldn't be afraid of putting a little bit, if you have it spare, into something that you're passionate about, because the people who build the passionate technology, like what Anu's doing, you're supporting them. So you're supporting people that are interested in pushing the boundaries of their passion in life. So Rarible, Anu's token, when it comes out, we're there ready to support you.
Thank you.
Decentraland, there's some really interesting stuff out there, and all the climate ones they're just coming in now. Regen Network, there's a few of them, they're just coming in, so I'll be bang on them when they're there. So that's my final take. And
Lisa, I think it's also important to share some perspective of what we've seen over the last 4 years, right? That
yes.
you really need to look at things from every single different angle.
Yes.
There's a tendency that this industry not only brings the best out of us, but it also brings the worst out of people as well, that are trying to, not only change the narrative, but create and enable a scam in that process, which this is a minefield for investing. Because hypothetical future networks, although they may maintain some sort of intrinsic value based on trading activity, doesn't necessarily mean that those companies are doing anything, okay? No. Except creating internal energy costs around mining schemas that eventually fall apart. So we need to do better due diligence. We need data that's out there that creates more validations, and we need the cooperation from the companies that are part of this industry to do their own self-disclosure and reporting, good, bad, or ugly, right? Nobody wants to, throw mud on, the performance of anything, but there's too many hype machines that are out there, right? That all of a sudden you get on a merry-go-round and you can't get off, and then you look at your asset and you just lost 99.5% of it. They leave a little bit there for hope, right? For hope, but that's not, this is, again, responsible AI we're talking about right here, right? We shouldn't be thinking about this always in profit and loss terms, but sustainability terms, I think, has a better implication.
Well, yeah, definitely. And Brian, to add to that, there's a big thing at the moment that you'll be into, I know, and you, Jill, as well, is gender washing. So people pretending, and companies pretending that they're supporting women initiatives, and like I've heard big companies saying they're putting on women on boards for the sake of putting women on boards, and like women with little to no expertise that don't want to be on boards. So I think that this whole data analysis and looking and researching corporations and what they're up to in terms of what they're getting involved in, I think that will be a key role, and it'll be so much easier with the new digital economy.
Well, there's a lot of greenwashing that's going on across corporate America when it comes down to even their ability to capture carbon credits along their initiatives, which again, the energy market is the next thing. Okay, if you don't see it, it's okay, right? But in 5 years from now, power is going to be redistributed in regeneration as we get closer to exhausting fossil fuels, which again, whether it's in 50 or 60 years from now, we don't know. But this planet is at the point right now that it's regurgitating all the pollution that is in the environment and the ocean. Unless we do something to combat that, we're not going to be here, nor is the generations after us are going to be here to enjoy and understand what a beautiful sunset means, right? It's not, we saw it in COVID, right? People stopped commuting and you were able to see the Himalayas from 3 countries away, the tip of Everest. You couldn't do that for the last 15 years because of global pollution. Amazing. And that's a tragedy right now that I think our industry should take a lead initiative here, do something about it. That will have impact of change that could be sustainable, right? But, we'll see.
I agree.
I'm going to jump off. I have to moderate another panel. So thank you all. Thank you, Lisa, Jillian, Aaron, and Brian. I'm going to go to the Crypto Queens. Join us if you have a moment.
Namaste. Namaste.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you.
Namaste. Ciao, ciao.
Okay, guys, I think we did really well. Brian's gone as well.
Yeah, hey, one thing, we had a question from Stan. He may be on. He was on one of the panels yesterday. Stan has been doing some very interesting things around plastics around the world. And his question was placing a valuation around what we value and prioritize as part of the exciting possibilities of blockchain. As recycling blockchain company, there is such a connection between societal benefit and digital currency. So I think it's an important point because that's really the bridge we're making. We're taking things that traditionally would be lost underneath the circular economy banner, to use some jargon, okay, but where people have to take accountability around the product life cycle. And so in the recycling world, there's a lot of things that we can very quickly address that would create a better life for the people who are living in the puddles of stuff where we're disposing these things at, right? So I think those are the natural, easy hits for this year, to move on some of those things because they're already underway, but scale it across, right? So that's a great example. And for that, as an investor, I would look at the valuation and not from EBITDA and not in the traditional way of valuation. That's one of the reasons why with Brian and with our investment bank and so forth, we're changing the due diligence to a 409 up front. To whatever we do, we create the due diligence holistically. Okay, right. And the venture and the benefit. And along that journey, I'm making the bet we will create the new metrics that will keep the performance and visibility and transparency real time as we progress. And that's the part where the insights in Brian's tools, where the instrumentation there is going to be very important. How we run these projects. And these are, nothing more than what you would expect from a little bit beyond traditional program management skills, right? And project management skills. Even that discipline is missing, and even more so challenging when you're trying to do it in agile or super agile processes today, which is the innovation cycle, right? So it's very easy to get lazy and block and leave out something, or not know something existed, or be midstream and you hear in a panel like this, somebody else already has a solution. So, how do you arbitrate that, right? And that's what we're trying to harmonize here as well, at least with the people we know. So we're not replicating each other's work. We're complementing and adding to move forward faster.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I agree with Stan there, what he's saying. The issue between deployment of capital around the ESG initiative is that we need a way to place a valuation using traditional metrics. Yes, yeah, exactly. We need to look at the metrics, and we need to look at KPIs in relation to what we're trying to do.
Yeah. What we're finding is that traditional metrics are the ones that are keeping the entrepreneurs away, because people are either looking at a financial engineering model with the theme of the day, if we call DeFi or DAO as a theme of the day today. All of a sudden Silicon Valley gets excited and you see 5 new companies pop up with all the major names, and everybody gets the media behind it, and we're all writing about it, and next thing you know 50 other companies who were doing something else, all of a sudden they're in that space, right? So we've seen that cycle over and over, and we're trying to make sure whatever we do, we're setting and that's the accountability that we have in the pressure. We're trying to set a reference model. It doesn't have to be ours, but at least put something up to engage people onto, and it'll iterate forward. The more adoption you get, the more it'll iterate. But we're not trying to put our position versus somebody else. I think the real key message here is that we have to be non-adversarial. But the tribal behavior, there's not enough money to go around. There's not enough stuff, activities. Why replicate? And I don't think the bragging rights are there. You really have to now be a true innovator and get some ahas than just regurgitate and socialize the same old shit about blockchain and everything else that I've been hearing for years and years. It's just more people are talking about it now. So
exciting. I've got to hit the track.
We're hitting the road.
Okay. Road. Thank you very much. That was brilliant. Thank you. Very interesting. Do it with friends.
Yeah, do it with friends. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks everyone.